English, Class 10, Chapter 2, Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom, Part 2. Good morning, children. We are back today to do the second part of the chapter, Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom, an extract from his autobiography. Children, we have seen yesterday that Nelson Mandela has been sworn in as the President of South Africa. Now, we have also seen that the blacks are considered no longer as outlaws. Nelson Mandela is no longer an outlaw in the eyes of the other countries of the world. He has now become a president of a country, and he is respected by the countries all over the world. Now let's carry on with the second part of the lesson. A few moments later, we all lifted our eyes in awe as a spectacular array of South African jets, helicopters, and troop carriers roared in perfect formation over the Union building. It was not only a display of pinpoint precision and military force, but a demonstration of the military's loyalty to democracy, to a new government that had been freely and fairly elected. Now, the display of the planes, the jet planes, the helicopters, it is not just to show what the military can do, what the military is supposed to be doing, what the military does, but it is a demonstration of the military's loyalty to democracy, to a new government that has been freely and fairly elected. So, this is a respect to the new government. Only moments before, the highest generals of the South African Defence Force and Police Force, their chests bedecked with ribbons and medals from days gone by, saluted me and pledged their loyalty. So these military officers are paying loyalty to Nelson Mandela. They are saluting and showing their loyalty to him. I was not unmindful of the fact that not so many years before, they would not have saluted but arrested me. Finally, a chevron of Impala jets left a smoke of trail of the black, red, green, blue, and gold of the new South African flag. So, the military officers are paying loyalty to him, they are paying respect to him, and they are saluting him. But Nelson Mandela is also aware of the fact that some time back, these people would have arrested him because he was then an outlaw. But now, the very same people who would have arrested him is now paying their loyalty to him. So children, this is the power of the chair. This is the power of the position. Then what happens now? A chevron of Impala jets. Impala jets are military jets. Impala jets left a smoke trail of, what is the color? Black, red, green, blue, and gold of new South African flag. So the Impala jets are leaving a smoke of these colors that is making the flag of South Africa. The day was symbolized for me by the playing of our two national anthems and a vision of whites singing Nkosi Sikelel, E Africa, and a black singing Diastem, the old anthem of the Republic. So the blacks and the whites, they have got different national anthems. And on this particular day, both the national anthems were sung. Although that day, neither group knew the lyrics of the anthem they once despised, they would soon know the words by heart. So it is the very first day. We can well imagine that in this function, the national anthems were not sung as properly as it should be sung. But Nelson Mandela understands that in due course of time, all the people are going to learn their national anthems by heart, and it would be sung in a proper manner. On the day of the inauguration, I was overwhelmed with a sense of history. In the first decade of the 20th century, a few years after the bitter Anglo-Boer War, before my own birth, the white-skinned peoples of South Africa patched up their differences and erected a system of racial domination against the dark-skinned people of their own land. So, in the first decade of 20th century, this is a sin. The white-skinned peoples of South Africa patched up, made up their differences. That means, in spite of the differences amongst them, the white-skinned people of South Africa, they erected a system of racial domination against the dark-skinned people of their own land. So there was discrimination in the first part of the century, not just the first decade of the century. The structure they had created formed the basis of one of the harshest, most inhumane societies the world has ever known. Now, in the last decade of the 20th century and my own 8th decade as a man, that system had been overturned forever and replaced by one that recognized the rights and freedoms of all people, freedoms of all peoples, because in Africa there are so many different sects of people, regardless of their color of their skin. Now, this is the difference you find in the first decade and the last decade of the 20th century. When the last decade of the 20th century, when Nelson Mandela became the president of South Africa. So before there was discrimination. In the first decade of the 20th century, there was discrimination. And the black people of the African soil, they were discriminated against. But in the last part of 20th century, in the last decade of 20th century, we can see that it is replaced by one that recognizes the rights and freedoms of all peoples, blacks, whites, all colored people of South Africa. That day had come about through the unimaginable sacrifices of thousands of my people whose suffering and courage can never be counted or repaid. I felt that day, as I have on so many other days, that I was simply the sum of all African patriots who had gone before me. That long and novel line ended and now began again with me. I was pained that I was not able to thank them and that they were not able to see what their sacrifices had wrought. So now South Africa is getting her independence. They have now become a sovereign state. They are free, they are liberated. But this liberation, this freedom does not come just overnight. It is a work of so many people, thousands of people who sacrificed their lives in order to gain this freedom. Now they have started working and it is continued, and the work that they have started continued and carried on, and it ended with Nelson Mandela. And now another kind of life in South Africa begins. Nelson Mandela is the end of that line of struggle, of sacrifices, and he is starting a new pace ahead. He is pained to know that the people who had sacrificed their life are no longer there to see the result of their sacrifices, what their sacrifices have attained. He was not Nelson Mandela regrets that he was not able to thank them, and he is pained to realize, to know that they are not able to see the kind of goal that their sacrifices have brought about. The policy of apartheid created a deep and lasting wound in my country and my people. All of us will spend many years, if not generations, recovering from that profound hurt. But the decades of oppression and brutality had another unintended effect, and it was that it produced Oliver Tambo's, Walter Sisula's, Chief Lutley's, the Yusuf Dadoo's, Bram Fisher's, Robert Soberquist's of our time. Now, here you have a picture of these people. He means to say, Nelson Mandela means to say that yes, we have suffered a lot. Apartheid has wounded us, has cut us so deeply that the wound is going to take a very long time to heal. And the mark which is left by the wound will remain. But it has done one thing: the struggle, the pain, the brutality, the inhuman oppression has done one thing. It brought so many martyrs, so many patriots, like the names it is given here. You have the pictures here also. Oliver Tambo, Walter Sisulu, Chief Lutley, Yusuf Dadoo, Bram Fisher, and Robert Soberquist. So these are the people, men of such extraordinary courage, wisdom, and generosity that their like may never be known again. That means people of their kind will never be known again. Their courage, their wisdom, the generosity, there will be no other person like them in the future. Perhaps it requires such depths of oppression to create such heights of character. This is an irony. It is very hard to accept. It requires such depth of oppression to create such heights of character. This is the Janith and the Nadir. Janith of character and the Nadir of oppression. My country is rich in the minerals and gems that lie beneath its soil. But I have always known that its greatest wealth is its people, finer, truer than the purest diamonds. South Africa is known. There are so many novels, there are so many books of treasure hunt in South Africa. And so it is known for the rich diamonds, for the rich mineral. But richer than the richest diamonds, richer than the richest mineral is the people of the country. They are truer, finer than the purest diamonds. It is from these comrades in the struggle that I learned the meaning of courage. So it is from these comrades in the struggle, these comrades, the names that we have mentioned, from their struggle, Nelson Mandela came to understand something. What is that thing he understands? He has come to know and understand the true meaning, the real meaning of courage. Time and again, I learned the meaning of courage. Time and again, I have seen men and women risk and give their lives for an idea. I have seen men stand up to attacks and torture without breaking, showing a strength and resilience that defies the imagination. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. Now, people have suffered time and again, over and over again. Men and women, they stand up, but they are undaunted. They are not defeated. They stand up. They show strength and power. They are not defeated. So, from this, he has learned that courage was not the absence of fear. It doesn't mean that courageous people knows no fear, but it is a triumph over it. They have tussled, they have wrestled, they have fought with fear, and they have overcome fear. So this is courage. And brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. So in this paragraph, you have very important point, the definition of courage and brave man. Let me repeat. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. Now, the last paragraph of this section contains very important points. Let's see. No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love, for love comes more naturally to human heart than its opposite. Even in the grimmest times in prison, when my comrades and I were pushed into our limits, I would see a glimmer of humanity in one of the guards, perhaps just for a second, but it was enough to reassure me and keep me going. Man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never be extinguished. Now, see, he is talking about love and hate. Love and hatred. No one is born hating another person. Everyone is born out of love. So love comes very naturally to us. But people have been taught to hate. People have been, they have been brainwashed in one way. Because of certain outward influence. So people are taught to hate other people of different color, of different background, of different skin, of different looks. So Nelson Mandela's point is that if these people can be taught, they can be influenced to hate others, they can be taught to love. Because of the two, love and hatred, love comes more naturally because it is there already in us. Hatred is only an influence. So he also tells us of his experience in the prison when he and his other friends were imprisoned and they suffered so much. They were pushed to their limits, means they suffered to the height of suffering. There are some guards in the prison with loving eyes and eyes of sympathy. And these eyes, even if it was not shown for a very long time, it was enough. A second's glimmer of humanity in their eyes is enough to know that, yes, there is goodness in this world. It kept him going. It reassured him. And he says, man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never be extinguished. The goodness in man cannot be wiped away. It will always come up. It can be hidden for some time, but it can never be extinguished. It remains. Love remains. Love will triumph over hatred. This is what Nelson Mandela believes. Now, this is the end of the second part. We'll continue with the third part in the next class. And please go through the video again and please do one homework. I'll give you only one homework. Who, according to Nelson Mandela, is a brave man? What is his definition of courage? So do this exercise, write down the answer in your notebook and please send it to me. Thank you. God bless you.